Whoa, we're back for some Bleach Soul Resonance, and coming off of a big day for Mirror's High, that of which you could go to the video and check out my impressions on Mirror's High if you so desire. I will say, as a quick sneak peek, just being real, the Bleach Soul Resonance beta did impress me much more. My theory is that the Mirror's High beta was forced out with the TYBW, Core 4 returning, so maybe that's why it's a little, less optimal than the BSR one. BSR felt like a much more completed game, but that's not what this video is about. We're going to be talking about the Nuverse response to sort of criticism, a lot of Chinese backlash from their player base, or Chinese player base, and the game in general. We're not going to go over like every single thing, but I would want to prompt you that if you have a problem with the game, and try to balance it, problem with the game, maybe things you like, what would be your main critique of the game currently? And maybe we'll see if any of these answer our, criticisms of the game as a stand. I do not think it's a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. I just tend to be pretty positive when it comes to things I'm playing and enjoying. I don't really doom about things. If I see something that is bogus, I'll call it out. The one thing I did call out actually was, I think that it was developer. I do think that Shueisha had a hand in it, obviously, but I do think it's the developer problem if you change the engravings on a character that people are pulling for, just flatly, right? So there's that. I said, this is a problem on your end. You can try to say it was Shueisha, but this is like a you problem, too, equally, I think. So let's get into the Discord where someone has graciously provided a translation. We'll also read Giku's sort of notes on the TLDR, and we'll just give our opinion on all of it. So strap in. This might be a pretty long video, a pretty talky video. I'll try not to yap too much because I do want to save some points for future things that I may want to go a little more in depth on, and I don't want to take up your time, but we'll get into it. So first and foremost, we have someone saying, or rather, again, thanks to this user, but saying, to all Substitute Soul Reapers, due to the large amount of feedback across multiple dimensions, such as character production, so on and so forth, we meticulously verified each issue and carefully deliberated as a team. And I'm going to skim a bit just for ease because I don't want this video to be forever long. Also, I don't want this to feel like I'm just reciting, things you've already heard or maybe you have read yourself. But we'll first say that the weapon engraving enhancement for Kurosaki Ichigo will be adding an effect to his exclusive weapon engraving that increases the upper limit of rupture stacks, along with measures such as boosting the damage multiplier of the follow-up attack after casting the combat skill, so on and so forth. We'll also focus on optimizing the fluency of transition between basic attacks and combat skills. This one definitely feels like something that needs to happen. There are a few points in True Shikai Ichigo's gameplay, his basic rotation, that feel a little sluggish at times, a little weighty, in a way that a lot of the other characters simply do not. Even though, again, I literally think this is the best DPS in the game if you're a free-to-play player. Free-to-play, low spending, B0, B2. I literally think this is the best DPS in the game. But it doesn't mean there aren't glaring things that could be a little smoother about him, right? At some point it becomes a, how does it feel to play this character? And I think it feels a little awkward sometimes. Issues regarding production quality and faithfulness to the original work. Regarding player feedback about lackluster visuals, effects, scarce combat voice lines, and modeling, we feel deeply apologetic and helpless, to be frank. As the first character of the 1,000-Year Blood War special version, the development team invested considerable resources into prioritizing its production, even moving the version update up specifically to July 15th, Ichigo's birthday. Our original intention was to pull out all the stops, creating plenty of faithful or original skill effects and voice lines. For instance, we purchased over a dozen combat voice lines and restored Ichigo's iconic elbow strike, but unfortunately these ultimately failed to make it onto the online release version. Every new character we create goes through this recurring cycle of struggle and negotiation. Sometimes we reach a consensus and the other times we don't, something that is truly beyond the project team's control. However, we will still uphold the philosophy of presenting the best possible results to players, and we'll do our utmost to strive for better outcomes. Please forgive us. I mean, again, you have to juggle it. There are people who really think and believe that this is a negotiating issue, that this is something that they could vie for better, that this is something they just need to talk about more. No. At the end of the day, this is going to come down to what Shueisha allows them, allots them. Does it mean they are blameless when things happen? Does it mean you can't have problems with the dev team at times? No, it doesn't mean that. But strictly speaking, the IP is not something flexible. IP law does not exist to benefit creators. It does not exist to benefit consumers. It does not exist to benefit you. It does not exist to benefit me. IP law exists for corporations. So when you do see things like this, you can be sure that the corporation is playing hardball, right? There is no budging. There isn't like an amount of money that they could just like alleviate or throw at it to make it go away. They're already paying. I mean, they literally said we bought a bunch of voice lines and stuff. They had to pay for these things. They have to pay to rent out these ideas, these concepts, right? As we know then, Bleach Mirror's High is going to be a competitor, direct competitor, Japanese competitor, Bandai competitor. These are things they're going to want to present in their vision first. So, like I said, it's not that we can't be critical of the Nuverse dev team or what have you, the Bleach Soul Resonance dev team, but you have to be fair at some point. You can't just be like, well, why didn't they bargain better? That's not how this works. There's no bargaining better, I promise you. Regarding high-frequency bug reports, issues such as auto-battle glitches, transforming without transcendence points, abnormal ultimate skills, and synergy issues with Nella will all be fixed in this week's update. Probably Monday, Tuesday. We deeply apologize that lax testing on our part allowed these issues to impact players. Again, that's their fault, right? That's just fully stopped. There's nothing to say. That's not a Shueisha issue. That's not a Bandai issue. That's an in-house issue. Just like when, Metal Cooler comes out and at first people are like, oh, he's like maybe not that great, and maybe we don't pull for him, or you should skip him. And then suddenly it's like Metal Cooler is the best character that's ever existed, and a bunch of people already skipped, and now they don't have Metal Cooler, right? Character design and balance. The overall output of the Strike team is relatively weak. The primary reason lies in the randomness of Mayuri's combat skills, and it essentially says that there's no longer going to be a trigger. It's going to be fixed, so it's just going to be like rotating, over and over. There's a lack of support class characters for the Strike type. This is currently under production. Please keep an eye out for the future versions. Characters perform well on dummy targets, but fail to unleash their strength in actual combat, and during future internal balance tests, they will try to strengthen the actual combat environment testing phase. Now, this is something more along what I always preach, which is, hey guys, I'm going to show you what they look like in practice mode, but once it's actually game time, you might not have time anymore to just get every Nell basic attack off. These bosses are actually starting to disrupt. When you're in actual events, and one of the events in particular that I can think of, when you're in this mode right here, when you're in this mode right here, and you're fighting this guy, you might not have ample time to just like stun these guys anymore. So there's going to come a point where it's like, oh, it's cool. Excuse me. It's cool that these characters are they're doing 1 billion damage in training mode. They're doing 1 billion damage in this and that. But are they doing that damage when it's time to when it's crunch time? You know what I mean? So I've said a lot that's going to become something that we should talk about more as the game goes on, is like, how do they actually perform in the events? That's why I say, when I do these videos, when I say I'm going in there and this is not the perfect run, but this is what you can expect, I do those videos because I want you to know how they perform. Maybe you don't have time to do 1 billion runs. Maybe you don't have time to try to nail the rotations every time. I can do the rotations in training mode all I want, but when it's time to actually do these areas, you might want to see how a B0 character actually performs in that content, right? The engraving and refining. Engraving substats are difficult to roll. Yeah, future systems will help with rolling stats. I mean, we've kind of been over that one a lot. And they've been trying to do this. They've been rolling this out. I know people are like, oh, they've been promising this forever. They kind of have started rolling that out. I mean, the current event has a bunch of currency that you get for free that you can roll stats for, right? I think that's fine. Obviously, you could be like, I want more, and that's like, okay, that's fine. But they are slowly doing this one, I think. It could always be better. Gameplay and content shortages. Suggestions to add more permanent gameplay with activities on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays as well. We actually do not encourage players to treat the game like a punch-in-at-work daily routine, so most gameplay is rolled out in the form of events with flexible time requirements. As development progresses, we will appropriately increase event density so you have things to play, rewards to claim, and tasks to do. This one's a little more specific, special, because I agree that we sort of have to weigh what the intended consumer base is if you're making a game like this. That said, if I'm going to I want to push back against that new verse, because here's the reality. These mobile games are getting more and more like main games. You can play Epic 7 daily for a long time. You can play Epic 7 for hours at a time, especially when you make new accounts. It doesn't mean you have to. You can get everything done, but having the option to do more in your game cannot be excused by we don't want you to punch in at work. Does that mean that you can't be like, okay, well, we're just not going to do it to the temporary content? Sure. But permanent, enjoyable, repeatable content? You can't finger wag that away by saying we don't want you to feel like you're punching in at work. Dokkan Battle currently has this problem majorly. Dokkan Battle has the current issue. When you play Dokkan Battle right now, has there been a meaningful hard fight in Dokkan for 5 months? Have we had a meaningful, because remember, Grand Tours came out, that was good, they took it away. RE content came out, for a long time, they took it away. They brought it back, guess what? Now our box is too strong, none of that content matters. It's so easy. Even now, they literally released new fights, and I'd say they're pretty easy. And it's because our characters have outscaled it. So to be like, would you rather the game not move at all, just to maintain this like casual atmosphere? Doesn't make any sense. There will come a time when getting the character is not enough. We actually need things to do. And I don't think you can just hand wave that one away. I'm going to push back against them on that one. Suggestion to add new highly interactive gameplay. We have noticed that players have a very high participation rate and favorable reviews for multiplayer interactive modes like Secret Realm Frontline, Sword Duel, Peak Contest. We will rerun the second phase of Secret Realm Frontline soon, alongside new cosmetic drops. In the future, we will also add more large-scale multiplayer interactive gameplay. For single-player experiences, we will release new maps, stage monsters, and bosses alongside game progression to enrich single-player combat. Yeah, I mean, you can promise those things, but we got to see it, obviously. Suggestions for SR characters. They're going to have SR Plus characters based on banner schedules, of course, which are already in production. It makes sense. Hopes to introduce other forms of Orihime and Unohana. Popular characters including Unohana and other forms of Orihime are on the candidate list for character production. Please watch out for future versions. Suggestion to update story cutscenes and animations. At game launch, the production of the first 8 chapters was completed, and by now we have finished up to 12 chapters. However, the supervisory approval process for original story content, especially 3D animations, far exceeded our original expectations. Due to repetitive revisions and lengthy procedures under the current environment, we are forced to tilt more supervisory resources towards characters in new version content. At the same time, however, we are pushing hard to advance story supervision progress and hope players can give us a bit more time. I mean, again, there isn't some magical hand wave they can do to make Shueisha more lenient on this. They have to balance like putting things in the game and also being able to pay the people who work on the game. You don't get a game that looks like BSR for free. Official attitude, and this is about it. So, official attitude. The handling attitude is disheartening. Bugs are fixed quietly without announcements, no compensation given, and players are left to retest and verify themselves. There might be some misunderstandings here. For severe issues affecting character balance and game experience, we have always informed players via update emails containing compensation. However, for non-obvious bugs, we typically push fixes and updates directly. This approach is more efficient, but it does easily cause misunderstandings. We will optimize this workflow moving forward and ensure people are properly notified. Adjusting attitudes based on status, quick follow-ups when major content creators, streamers speak out, while ordinary players' feedback regarding older characters gets delayed long term. This is genuinely a failure in our work. The development team will regularly monitor public opinion across all channels, as opinions with higher volume are indeed easier to capture. Moving forward, the official team will directly collect feedback from players across main channels and provide regular updates. Yeah, I mean, all that's fine. I mean, if it happens, right? I mean, this is up in the air. It's a little confusing. You know, it's kind of like official language, you know what I mean? Other than that, though, replay reviews, relevant events, to above, optimization suggestions will be implemented on the 26th. Standard passive, yeah. Add redeemable items, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, just some other things. So I would say it's a pretty good and full look at this in general. I like that post. I think it is not only like novel, but it is one of those things where they do address a lot of the ire that they've sort of gained from being mostly quiet during this time. It is fair to attribute blame on, like, especially like the handling of the Ichigo boundaries and like, but I do think it's unfair to push so much in how they deal with Shueisha. It just is what it is. Like, it is what it is. That's IP Gotcha. We'll move over here. Hopefully we can maybe, I don't know how much we can zoom out or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, my stupid face is here. Maybe I can just move this. So, apology message was posted on their official Bilibili account, and this is just the Giku sort of like overview of what happened. Weapon sample will be buffed, higher rupture, less dead time in between attacks and techniques. All will be fixed this week in terms of Ichigo's bugs. Production quality, a lot of had to be cut because of the Great Demon Lord, and they actually had a lot more planned. Balance, Strike Team acknowledged to be weaker mainly because of Mayuri's RNG. Will be most likely creating a fixed rotation for his techniques in the future. Expect a Mayuri buff at some point, which probably means he will be rerunning sometime soon. Furthermore, Strike support character confirmed in the works. Gear, more targeted subsets, pity systems for passes, better core stamp drop rates, ways to obtain core stamps incoming, more content being planned while not trying to cause too much of a strain. Mystic Frontline will be returning soon, including a new skin. New SR Plus characters are in the works. Unohana and Orihime are in the works. Probably not soon at all still. The devs have story chapters up until 12 already done, just awaiting approval process. Communication. Will strive to be much more communicative with certain bug announcements. Will do their best to not play favorites with CN streamers and listening to their voices more. And miscellaneous, more HP and floors for guild challenge, sweep function for hollow elimination, and a, oh my god, thank god, and a retry mode for co-op practice will arrive August 5th. Suggestions to add a secondary warning to prevent accidental dismantling of max tier engravings and add redeemable items for ticket stubs will arrive in the 26th. Okieda's Resurrection skin plan to return. No dates yet. And sorry about that. And anti-cheat measures mentioned, already known, but they have a lot more when it comes to anti-cheat now. So yeah, like I said, sounds good to me. A lot there that I think is valuable, though obviously it is sort of coded in that language that you can't exactly parse in complete full because they cannot make promises. It's like going to the doctor. You know, you go to the doctor, you get a sort of like a assertion of what you might be dealing with, but they never say like, oh, you're completely healed. Oh, you're completely fine. You're completely this. They never say anything definitive. They sort of just tell you, this looks like this. This could be this. We'll have to, you know, monitor it, blah, 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 because, you know, there's like a liability there. So a lot of talk that sort of stinks of that, like, oh, you know, we don't want to be held liable if we say something too outright. But I think while I saw some people saying that this felt like a mostly useless little like Q&A, I think this was pretty good. I'm leaving this feeling pretty positive. But again, I'm enjoying the game, so I feel positive about it. If you're not enjoying it and everything that they do or everything that the game does is like leaves a bitter taste in your mouth, take a break. That's the classic sign of burnout, and you might not want to admit it. So, you know, I get it. You know, I get it. But Dokkan has been literally dead for 6 months, and you could say, well, not if you got the characters. I've literally gotten them. I've gotten, I think, almost every character that's released bar Cell Max, because I've gotten pretty lucky. I've just been using 150 Dragon Stones every time a banner comes out, and I've gotten pretty lucky. And I literally still have nothing to do when I get on Dokkan. It's the fate of PvE games a lot of times. They're not all Epic 7. They're not all HSR. They're not all, you know, 7 years into, you know, your game that you're just picking up. You know, these honeymoon phases, they last less amount of time when they're new, and they last a long time when they're old games. If you got on BBS right now to start playing during the, you know, 11th anniversary and, you know, you're pulling on the characters, you have 11 years of content to go through. Whereas, you know, you have to be reasonable when you say that, you know, ultimately there's just not that much waiting for you here if you don't enjoy it. So that's my point. That's how I feel about it currently. Yeah, a lot of Bleach on the horizon. Hopefully Mirror's High can iron out some of its problems. I know I didn't talk about it here a lot, but I'll probably talk about it in a future video. And yeah, I've been Lone. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the club, we all go make it, and peace.